We continue now at the top of Daf Kuftes Bava Metzia Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 115a. On the previous Amar Rabbi Yochanan said that if a person takes a mashkon and then he returns that mashkon, he returns that collateral to the borrower, then the borrower dies, he is still allowed to take that collateral from the heirs. It's not considered like regular metaltalin, which you're not allowed to take from the Yarshim. And the Gemara is in the middle of asking a question from a Brisa. The Gemara is in the middle of reinterpreting the Brisa. This is a Brisa with the opinion of Reb Meir. And the question of the Brisa is now reinterpreted as follows: Lama chozrenu memashkin. And if you're already returning the collateral, what's the point of taking it again? Rashi says, Lama chozrenu memashkin and hare olav lahachzer lo lamachri. He's just going to have to return to the guy the next day. So what's the point of taking it again? And the Brisa answers, Shalote shvias mishamta. So that way, if you take the collateral, shvias will not cancel the loan. Velo yasim metaltalin eitzel banav. And that way also, it's not going to be considered like metaltalin by the children, by the heirs. Again, you're not allowed to take metaltalin from the heirs, but you are allowed to take a mashkon. Rashi explains, Shalote shvias mishamta so delahavim mashkono biyodo. The point over here is that he has to be holding the mashkon. The malva needs to have it in his possession. V'hamalva ala mashkon eno meshamed. As long as there's a loan on collateral, so then there is no, Shemitah will not cancel that loan. V'lo yasim metaltalin eitzel banav, and it won't be metaltalin by the children, meaning shelo yamus ba'od hamashkon muchzer lo. The problem will be, what if the borrower dies while the borrower has the mashkon? V'yeh metaltalin eitzel banav, then it's going to turn into metaltalin by the children. So that's how we're reinterpreting the Brisa. And so the Gemara now says, if you're understanding the Brisa in that fashion, taima dehadru mashkone, the only reason why he's allowed, when the lova dies, he's allowed to keep it is because he took it as collateral. It's in his possession. Hello, hadru mashkone, but if he didn't take it back into his possession as collateral, so apparently no, you're not allowed to take it from the heirs. That goes directly against what Rabbi Yochanan says. As Rashi says, taima dehadru mashkone shaya biyado kishemes lova, since it was in his possession when the borrower died, otherwise he's not allowed to take it from the Yarshim. And the Gemara answers, Amar Ravada bar Masna. Ravada bar Masna says, V'lav terutze kametaretzes law. Didn't you need to reinterpret the Brisa anyhow? There were problems with the language of the Brisa, so once you're reinterpreting it, Taretzachi, you should reinterpret it as follows. V'chi me'achar shemachzir, and if you're already returning the collateral, Lama memashkinin me'ikara. Why'd you take the collateral in the first place? That's all the Brisa is dealing with. It's not talking about taking it back. It's asking, why'd you take it in the first place? And the answer is, Shalote shvias mishamtaso, so that shvias should not cancel the loan. The Shemitah year shouldn't cancel the loan. And also, just by taking it in the first place, it doesn't need to be in the malva's possession at the time the lova dies. As long as the malva took it in the first place, it's not going to be considered metaltalin by the children, and he'll be able to take it from the children, just like Rabbi Yochanan said. And Rashi explains, Lama memashkin meikara davar sha'alav lahachzir ma'moelo. If he has to return it anyway, why take it? And the answer is, Shalote shvias mishamtaso demi demashkene kanye. From the moment he takes it as a mashkon, it's considered like he acquires it. V'chimahadrele, even when he returns it to him, have a pikadon gabe. It's only considered to be a deposit by the person that he's returning it to. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Lo savo el beso lavot avoto, you're not allowed to go into his house to take the security, to take the collateral. That's a pasuk in Sefer Devarim. And we learn from there, Leveso iaton nichnas, you can't enter his house, avolaton nichnas lebeso shel orev, but you are allowed to enter the house of the guarantor. You could go to an orev and take a collateral from him. V'chein hu omer, and similarly it says, this is a pasuk in Mishlei, the pasuk says, Lekach bigdo, you could take his garment, ki orav zor v'gomer, again, same basic idea. You have here a person who's a guarantor, so there is no problem with taking his garment. And the Gemara continues, V'yomer, and it also says in Sefer Mishlei, B'ni im aravta l'reyecha, it says, my son, if you're like an orev, if you're a guarantor for your friend, takata l'zor kapecha, you struck your hand for the stranger, no kashta b'imreficha, means to say you've ensnared yourself through your words, nil kadata b'imreficha, the same basic idea. Asezos efo b'ni, this is what you should do, my son, v'hinotzel, in order to save yourself, ki basa b'kaf reyecha, because you've come into the hand of your friend. Leches rapes urahav reyecha, go and humble yourself and strengthen your friend. And the Gemara continues and interprets the pasuk, if there's money of his in your hands, meaning to say the issue between you and this individual is money, so hater lo pisas yad, you should release the palm of your hand, meaning to say you should give him his money. V'im lav, and if not, harbe olavreim, you should gather together many friends in order to get his forgiveness. And the Gemara continues, Litzad Sheni, a second interpretation, Leveso iyata nichnas, you can't enter his house to take a collateral, avalata nichnas l'schar kosef, but you could enter his house, let's say he owes you wages. Let's say it's wages for carrying things on the shoulder as a porter, l'schar chamor, let's say he owes you wages as a donkey driver, l'schar punduk, let's say he owes you wages wages as an innkeeper, l'schar diyuknos, let's say he owes you wages because you've drawn something for him. Yachol afilu zakfan ala b'milva. Now I might think you're even allowed to enter his house to take the collateral if you've turned this obligation into a loan that he owes you. Talmud lomar mashas ma'uma. The pasuk says mashas ma'uma. We understand that to mean that if it's a loan of any kind, you can't go into his house to take a security. And Rashi explains, the pasuk said, "B'ni, my son, imaravta l'reyecha," if you're like a guarantor for your friend, or imno kashta b'mreificha, or if you're ensnared by your words, meaning shahoniso b'dvarim. Rashi understands that you've oppressed the person with words. Asay zos v'hinotzel. So then the pasuk is saying you have to do the following in order to save yourself. Hisrapes yad imaravta. If it's a situation of a guarantor, so then you have to give the money. V'im lo aravta. Let's say it's not a situation of a guarantor of money. Ela no kashta bo noas dvarim. Let's say the issue is, oh, noas devarim, there's been oppression, you've said something wrong to the person, so then rahav reyecha means harbe olav reim, get many friends together, gather them together, levakesh mechila, in order to ask for forgiveness. Im mamon yesh lo biyadcha, if it's money that's the issue that you have of his. Im nasis lo oriv, if you're like a guarantor for him, you owe him money. Vim no kashta bidvarim, and again the same idea, if it's an issue of words, rahav reyecha, you should gather friends, letzad sheni, and then the Gemara said another interpretation, kemo davar acher, letzad sheni, is the same thing as davar acher, so it means to say lebeso, to his house, shalova, meaning to say you're not supposed to enter the house of the borrower to take a security. B'milva, when we're talking about a loan, iyata nichnas, you're not allowed to enter in such a case. Avalata nichnas lemashchen chov acher she'ena milva. But let's say it's something that's not a loan, but some other kind of obligation, like these wages, sechar punduk, for example, the wages that are needed for an innkeeper, hiskir lo punduk, he gave him a place to stay, he gave him a place that he could stay, or diyuknos. Diyuknos again refers to tsarlo tsuros beveso b'schar. Let's say he drew paintings for him in his house, and that was also for wages, again for all of these things. So then we say you are allowed to take, but if it's been turned, if it's been converted into a loan, then it's problematic. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah Almana when it comes to a widow, bein shehi aniya, bein shehi ashira, whether she is poor or rich, ein memashkin in osa, you don't take collateral from her. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, lo sachbol beged almana, you don't take the garment of the widow as collateral. And the Gemara says, Tanu Rabban, and the rabbis taught, almana bein shehi aniya, bein shehi ashira, when it comes to a widow, whether she is poor, whether she is rich, ein memashkin in osa, we don't take a mashkin from her. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that's consistent with our Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon says it depends. Ashira, if she's wealthy, memashkin in osa, then you could take a mashkin from her. Aniya, but if she's poor, ein memashkin in osa, then you do not take a mashkin from her. Shata chayiv lahachzir law, because you're going to have to return it to her, meaning to say, if you're going to take a mashkin, a collateral, from a poor widow, you're going to have to return it to her when she needs it, and then v'atom asiya shem ra b'shchenoseh, then she's going to end up getting a bad name when this man keeps coming to her every single day or night to return whatever the collateral is. It's going to give her a bad name among her neighbors. And the Gemara says, Lameimer, does this mean to say, the Rabbi Yehuda lo darish time of the Dekra, that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't seek out the meaning behind the pasuk, meaning Rabbi Yehuda sees a pasuk, it says you can't take collateral from a widow, and he just applies it to all widows. Sounds like he's not looking for the reason behind the pasuk, he's just applying it across the board. For Rabbi Shimon darish time of the Dekra, it sounds like Rabbi Shimon is seeking the reason behind what the pasuk is saying, and that's why he's applying it specifically to a widow who is poor, but not to a widow who is wealthy. But the Gemara says that's a problem. We actually have the exact reverse when it comes to whether we're darshin on time of dekra or not. The Tanya, because we learned in a brayso v'lo yar below nashim, it talks about a king should not have so many wives. Rabbi Yehuda Omer marbehu, Rabbi Yehuda says he can have many wives. V'olvan shelo yehu mesira, says Libo, as long as they don't turn away his heart, meaning to say we are seeking the reason behind what the pasuk is saying. The main idea is not to turn away his heart. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, afilu achas v'hi mesira es libo, even if it's just one, but she's turning away his heart, hareza lo yisaena, he's not allowed to marry her. That would be true even if it was just one woman. Imkain, if so, matam and lomar v'lo yar below nashim. So why does the pasuk say he should not have many wives? It means to say afilu ka Avigail, even if it would be wives like Avigail, still to have many is a problem, meaning Rabbi Shimon is not darshin on time at the Dekra, he's not being dorish, he's not seeking out the reason of the pasuk, he's applying it across the board. The king cannot have many wives. And the Gemara says, Liolam Rabbi Yehuda lo darish Lokesh time of the Kra. Really, it could be Rabbi Yehuda does not seek out the reason of the pasuk. V'shani hacha, but it's different over here. Demefarish Kra, because the pasuk actually explains it. Meaning to say, in general, Rabbi Yehuda would say we apply the pasuk as it's written. But over here, when we talk about Lo Yarba Lo Nashim, it actually tells you the reason. It says V'lo Yarba Lo Nashim V'lo Yasser. It says he can't have many wives, that they shouldn't turn away his heart. My time Lo Yarba Lo Nashim. What's the reason that he can't have many wives? Mishum de Lo Yasser, so that he shouldn't turn away. For Rabbi Shimon, now Rabbi Shimon will respond, Michdi, let us see. Bialma Darshin on time of the Kra, in general, we really will seek out the reason of the pasuk. But Lichtov Rachmana Lo Yarba, but if that's the case, the pasuk should have written Lo Yarba, V'lo Ba'ina Lo Yasser, and then I don't really need Lo Yasser. V'ana Yadana, I would just know by Darshin on time of the Kra. I would know my time of Lo Yarba, what's the reason he can't have many wives? Mishum de Lo Yasser, because of Lo Yasser, it shouldn't turn away his heart. So Lo Yasser, the cause of Rachmana Lamali. So why does it say Lo Yasser? It means Afilu Achasu Mesiras Libo. It means to say even one wife who's going to turn away his heart. Harezo Lo Yisa'ena, he's not allowed to marry her. And Rashi explains, Mesia Shemra, again, if she's a poor widow and he's going to be returning the collateral every single day or night, so it's going to give her a bad name, Shata Yotze V'nichnas Etzla, because now you're going to go in and out by her house, Shacharis V'yarvis in the morning and in the evening, and that could be problematic. Michdi Bialma Dorish time of the Kra. Then the Gemara said that according to Rabbi Shimon, in general, we're already Darshin on time of the Kra. We already seek out the reason for the pasuk. Afagav Delo Mefarish time, even if the reason is not explained. Kudu Kimna Gabe Chova, like we say by Chova, like we say by the case of the collateral, by the security. And so therefore Rabbi Shimon will say, by the case of the king to not marry many wives, why is it that the reason is written? That's to say even one wife who turns him away is going to be a problem. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, HaChovel Esarechaim, if somebody takes as collateral the millstone, over Misham Losase, he violates a negative commandment, V'chayiv Misham Shnei Kelim, he's actually chayiv for taking two vessels. Shenemar, as it says in the Pasuk, Lo Yachavo Rechayim V'rochev, he can't take as collateral the lower and the upper millstone. V'lo Rechayim V'rechev Bilvad Amr. Now, they didn't only say this by the lower and the upper millstone, Ela Kol Davar She'osin Bo Ochel Nefesh, rather anything that is used for food, any vessels that are used to make food, Shenemar, as it says, Ki Nefesh Uchovel, because he's taking as collateral, essentially he's taking his soul. And Rashi explains, Mishum Shnei Kelim, because of two vessels there's a violation. Ha'elyona Rechev, the upper one is called the Rechev, V'atachtona Rechayim, and the lower one is called the Rechayim. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Huna says, Chaval Rechayim, if a person takes a millstone, Lo Kashtayim, he gets two sets of Malchus. Mishum Rechayim, number one, he gets Malchus because he took a Rechayim, he took a millstone. Umishum Ki Nefesh Uchovel, and also, he's violated Ki Nefesh Uchovel because he took as collateral the person's soul. Rechayim V'rochev, let's say the person takes both the lower and the upper millstone, Lo Kasholosh, then he's going to get three violations, three sets of Malchus. Mishum Rechayim V'rochev, because of the Rechayim and the Rochev. Umishum Ki Nefesh Uchovel, and also because of the pasuk of Ki Nefesh Uchovel. For Rav Yehuda, and Rav Yehuda says, Chaval Rechayim, if he takes the Rechayim as collateral, Lo Ka'achas, he gets one set of Malchus. V'rechev, let's say he takes a Rechev, Lo Ka'achas, he gets one set of Malchus. Rechayim V'rechev, if he takes the lower and the upper millstone, Lo Kashtayim, he gets two sets of Malchus. Ki Nefesh Uchovel, and as far as the pasuk of Ki Nefesh Uchovel, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuftes Vav Amud Beis.